Thomas Hobbes was born in 1588 in England, and he lived until 1679, which means he lived for 91 years, and in his lifetime he saw lots of tumultuous political events which largely influenced his philosophical beliefs and writing. For example, one of these catastrophic events that Hobbes lived through was the English Civil War, where we saw King Charles I get executed. This caused a lot of political disarray, instability, and fear amongst civilians. Hobbes really believed in having an absolute sovereign, which we'll get into later in the video, and just that belief makes a lot of sense given the times that Hobbes was living through. But now going into Hobbes's actual beliefs and writings in more detail. His most famous work was the Leviathan, which he published in 1651. In the Leviathan, he argues for an absolute sovereign and the necessity of having one ruler to lead over a country or a state of people.
One ring to rule them all.
He creates this argument by talking about the state of nature. That is, what would society look like if we did not have any government interference, any rulers, any official legal process? How would we act and coexist as humans in a completely natural state?
Gondor has no king. Gondor needs no king.
And Hobbes believed that if, as humans, we lived in a completely natural state, it would be a state of warfare and death. He believed that humans would turn against each other, kill each other. It just wouldn't be happy days. It would not be a good time. We need government, we need laws to be able to coexist. For Hobbes, humans cannot coexist unless we have a legal procedure and a government. You might think this is sort of an extreme view of human nature, but for example, in the 1970s, there was a blackout in New York City where for a short period of time security cameras stopped working, and as a result of this people started going out and robbing stores. Once there was no ramifications for their negative actions, they were quite ready to commit these crimes. Hobbes would have seen this and been like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So to be honest, if Hobbes was alive during the 1970s New York City blackout, he would probably be looking down on everyone from his Manhattan penthouse and going, oh, look at those silly creatures, that's what I said they would do. Look at them all rob each other, these fools. This is why humans cannot coexist. But, as we all know, Hobbes was not alive during the New York City blackout, so why did he have such a pessimistic view of human nature? Why did he think that without any legal procedure or government, we would all just start killing each other? So what do humans do? We realize that we need those government protections and those legal protections to ensure that we can coexist harmoniously. And this is what Hobbes calls the social contract theory. We're prepared to give up some of our freedoms in order to have government and legal protection. Well, his first reasoning was honest introspection. If you reflect on your own thoughts and behaviors, you become aware of the fact that humans are a little bit selfish. I mean, I can think of some examples from my life where I've done a more selfish action. Hobbes knew this as well. Hobbes did some selfish things, he did some honest introspection and realized, well, if I've done selfish things and if I've thought selfish thoughts, then other humans have as well, hopefully. Hopefully I'm not just a bad person. His second reasoning is sort of an interesting one. So Galileo had recently, in Hobbes's time, come out with this theory that everything is always in motion, and he applied that to the natural world. It would make sense that Hobbes, who was actually Galileo's friend, would think, well, that theory that everything is always in motion would also apply to humans. Humans and mankind is part of the natural world as well. So what are humans always in motion for? Well, he believed that humans are always searching for something. They're always searching to satisfy their desires.
Let me get what I want.
And it sort of makes sense. We wake up every morning and we start a new day, no matter how horrible that day might be, because we need to do something. We're always working to achieve something. So Hobbes recognized the fact that humans are always in search for something, and he came up with this idea that we are searching for a feeling of felicity, which basically means satisfying our desires. But while that is a good thing perhaps, Hobbes believes that it's this continual and unrelenting search for felicity will lead way to a certain sense of competition that would lead us to a state of warfare if we were just living in a natural society where there was no government and legal intervention. But there might be an obvious gap here. Humans are always trying to find this felicity, but why would that lead to us killing each other? Well, first, Hobbes addressed the problem of limited resources. We're all searching for the same sort of things: a nice job, a nice family, a nice house, and ultimately, those resources are limited. Then you might question, well, why does competition have to equal warfare? Now, here's an interesting thing about Hobbes is that he believed that all of mankind was equal in skill, equal in strength. Hobbes further believed that we would quite quickly escalate into this need to kill because we'd have this paranoia. We'd have this paranoia that others would kill us first to get what we have, and so we'd want to be the person to kill first. For those two reasons, for the fact that Hobbes believed that all of mankind is equal in skill and strength, and because of paranoia, Hobbes believed that we would end up in this state of warfare and we wouldn't be able to have friendly and respectful competition. And it sort of makes sense. We're not very trusting. I mean, even in current society with legal protections, we still have locks on our front doors. Legally, nobody can walk into our house and steal all of our belongings, but we don't trust that other humans won't do that, and we lock our door. So if that's how suspicious and untrusting we are with legal protections, imagine how paranoid we would be without legal protection. Now, at this point, many of you may be screaming something that Hobbes seems to have completely overlooked, which is morality. Even with the New York City blackouts, some people immediately took advantage of being able to steal from the stores, but lots of people didn't. There's a certain sense of morality that's shared amongst mankind. So it's very fair to question, wouldn't our moral code be enough to allow us to harmoniously coexist in a state of nature? And Hobbes does not think so. Isn't he great?
Okay then, we're gonna peacefully coexist.
He believes this because he thinks that moral codes come from our institutions and not from within ourselves. As he says, our institutions declare what is just and unjust, what is right and what is wrong. And that's what forms our moral codes. And so Hobbes believed that in a world where there was no institutions, there would be no laws, and therefore there would be no sense of what is just and unjust, right and wrong. In a state of nature, Hobbes believed that we would end up living with what he called the natural right of liberty. And that would be a world in which each individual would decide what's right and wrong for them on a personal level. So there's no universal moral code that we all share, but each individual would decide for themselves what they believe is right and wrong to do. That's the natural right of liberty.
You've got to think for yourself. You're all individuals.
He also thought that in a state of nature, there would be some laws that exist, even if an institution did not create those laws. And you guessed it, he called those the laws of nature. Very creative man was Hobbes. Good with his titles, good with his wordplay. So these laws, the laws of nature that exist in the state of nature, are laws that exist even without government institution. These magical laws in the world that we'd all abide by, even if an institution did not put them forth. He comes up with 19 laws that exist in the state of nature, but the first one is called the fundamental law of nature. And he thinks that this law is that humans will always seek peace first, and if they cannot obtain what they want through peaceful methods, then they can resort to warfare. But here it almost seems like Hobbes contradicts himself, because he says that this fundamental law that exists in the state of nature is that humans will rationally always seek peace first. But he just said that in a state of nature we'd always end up in warfare.
War and peace?
So what's going on, Hobbes? Hobbes addressed this, and he thinks that it's rational for humans to seek peace, so we're going to try and seek peace first. That's our fundamental law. But we can't trust others to do the same thing. We might know that we will seek peace first, but how do we know that everyone else is going to seek peace first? And so because of this, we preemptively defend ourselves.
I'm starting a war for peace.
And so for Hobbes, this is why the rational solution is to have a binding force that will hold us to peace. Binding authority, an absolute sovereign.
Full circle!
Yeah.
Like I said before, poor little Hobbes, who grew up during the English Civil War, just wanted political stability, and so he wanted an absolute sovereign who would maintain peace for the land. We can't trust other humans will try and maintain peace for themselves, and so we need a sovereign to come up with these laws and have the protections to ensure that we will always try and go for peace first. Hobbes was so desperate for political stability that he believed that once you choose who your sovereign is going to be, you cannot rebel against them, because he was so afraid of the chaos that might ensue if we did not have an absolute sovereign to protect our peace. So Hobbes has this really extreme preference for order, even at the cost of personal liberties. But not everyone felt that way. Not everyone wants an absolute sovereign, and that brings us very neatly into the next philosopher I'm going to cover, which is John Locke.